In this audio lecture, we'll cover Part 1 of the Building Blocks of Communication from Chapter 5 of your text. These are the steps that you take to build a helping relationship with your client. Step 1 happens before you ever even meet your client. We call this the getting ready phase. Start by reviewing any available information you have on your client. You may have documentation on the reason for the visit or any past history or information from previous visits or visits to other social service agencies. We call this the tuning in phase. It's the time when you try to anticipate what and how your client will be feeling. Remember those 3 questions we've gone over in class? You want to have positive answers to those 3 questions. When you're getting started, you want to greet your client. This is where the assessment process really begins. Make a mental note of your first impressions. You should always explain your role. Describe what you do with the agency or how you help clients. You can also explain the purpose of the meeting. If you have a reason for the referral, then you can note that so that they can start telling you their story. You should always consider what we call expectancy factors. You want to learn what the client expects from this helping relationship. Some are forthcoming and some are not. Either way, you want to deal with any unrealistic expectations or goals. You may say something like, "How do you hope or wish the agency can assist you?" Or, "We've explored the reasons why you were referred or required to seek our services, but I would like to know what you hope to gain from this process." It's very important that you ask the client to tell their story from their point of view, regardless of who referred them or why they're there seeking services. When you briefly describe the nature of the helping relationship, you want to express that you're partners, you're working together, seeking a solution to the client's difficulties. Clients often want an immediate solution, which is not realistic and not really your role. So you may say something like, "As I see it, our task is to work together in considering a number of options so that you can decide which solution best fits you and your situation. In the long run, that's what will work best for you. But finding the right solution takes some time and a lot of thought." You want clients to understand that they have responsibility to be actively involved. That involves carrying out tasks, keeping appointments, maintaining contact with you. The third step is to communicate informed consent, confidentiality, and agency policies. You want to note this when you're completing your online assignment and watching the videos of mock interviews. All social workers must share the client's rights, usually written up in a Bill of Rights, and also their limits to communication, such as confidentiality laws. The NSW Code of Ethics has a duty to warn clause, and it notes that social workers must maintain confidentiality with clients, keeping their information safe, unless the client threatens to harm themselves or others. This is something you want to explain to your clients and ensure they understand. And you want to do so in a culturally sensitive manner. And we'll talk about culturally sensitive practice later. Step 4, and this is the big bulk of what we want to learn to master, is basic interpersonal skills. Those can be broken down into 2 things, listening and talking. Listening involves receiving messages, and talking involves sending messages. These professional skills are what separates social workers from others. When you're listening, you're using your full sensory capacities to receive and register the messages that your client sends. These are both verbal and nonverbal. You're encouraging them to express themselves fully, and very importantly, you are remembering what they communicate. Listening enables you to gather information for assessment and planning with your client. And most importantly, it also helps clients feel better, reducing their anxiety, feeling safe, accepted, and hopeful. The second part is talking. In talking, we're going to talk about all the active listening skills. That includes what we mentioned, discussing your purpose, your role, and then we'll add skills such as paraphrasing, reflecting feeling, and summarization. Active listening combines the talking and listening skills to help your client feel understood and encouraged to further express themselves. We want to realize that listening and talking skills are professional skills that separate social workers from others. You may think you're a good listener, but actually most people are pretty poor listeners, where they pay more attention to their own thoughts and feelings. We want to learn how to listen and talk as a professional helper so you can develop what we call rapport with your client. The first thing in listening is to minimize attention to your own experiences, your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations. Say, for example, that you got a ticket on the way to work today. That's going to be on your mind, and it's going to distract you when you engage with your client. Using your listening and talking skills, you will put that in the back of your mind, and you will focus on your client and energetically concentrate on the client with the determination to understand, not to evaluate what the client is experiencing, but to fully understand them. There are subsections to step 4. The first section is finding out who your client is. To do this, you're going to seek feedback. Have them tell you their story in their own words. You may say, "What brought you here today?" Or, "What kind of issues are you dealing with today?" I like to give you some of the golden rules of social work. The first golden rule is start where your client is. That means focus on the present and have them tell you in their own words what's important to them. When asking questions, there are 2 main types, open-ended and closed-ended. Open-ended questions ask for a broader, more detailed information. For instance, tell me about your family. Closed-ended questions can usually be answered with a yes, no, or a 1 or 2 word response. How many children do you have? 2. You also want to add in questions that narrow the focus. These are questions that guide the client to describe the problem in more detail. Oh, what did you do then? You want to ask questions that will give you all the facts. Who, what, when, where, and how. You intersperse questions to help your client tell the information and the situations that they're facing. Another golden rule is to not ask why. Why do you think? You wouldn't ask why. Let me ask you. Let's say you have a behavior you displayed recently and you're not too proud of it. If I came up to you and asked, "Well, why did you do that?" Well, how would you feel? Probably defensive. You don't want your clients to feel defensive because that will put a barrier up between you and it won't help with your rapport building. As we conclude this part 1 to building communication, I want you to remember the core conditions for the helping relationship. Don't forget the social worker's got to have some warmth, that's unconditional, positive regard for their clients. Empathy, and what we're going to learn on part 2 is the use of empathetic communication. And they're genuine or congruent, meaning that They do what they say they're going to do. They're transparent and they're honest. That concludes part 1. Join me for part 2.